What would you do if a teacher with a personal vendetta was rigging the system against you? In today's story, the protagonist's choice is a masterclass in how to handle it, proving that sometimes you have to break a corrupt system to make things right. Our school had a tradition, a mini valedictorian award given out each year. Starting in middle school, I was in the gifted program, so a bunch of us had 4.0 GPAs. The award came down to who had the highest overall average on the 100-point scale. Being fiercely competitive, I set my sights on that award in 7th grade. But I had one major rival, let's call him Mark. Mark's grades were just as good as mine, and the top spot bounced back and forth between us constantly. We both had averages of 98 point something. It was so close that every single quiz, homework assignment, or exam could be the one to tip the scales. But Mark had a secret weapon. His mother, Mrs. Evans, was a teacher at our school. She was notorious for being a bully. She would yell, scream, and openly mock any teacher who dared to give Mark a grade that put him even slightly behind me. She would berate her own colleagues to get her son the grade she wanted. As one commenter on my story later pointed out, this is the kind of parenting that ultimately backfires, ruining the kid when they finally face the real world without mommy running interference. Usually, the school tried to avoid placing a student in their parents' class. But sometimes it was unavoidable. Naturally, Mark and I ended up in his mother's world history class. Throughout the year, Mark and I were neck and neck in her class. But I started to notice a disturbing pattern. On any objective assessment, multiple choice, fill-in-the-blank tests, I consistently scored several points higher than him. But on subjective assignments like essays and papers, he always managed to outperform me. Being young, I just figured he was a better writer. I was wrong. The end of the year arrived. All tests were taken, all assignments graded. The semester was basically over, and I held a fractional lead over Mark in Mrs. Evans's class, which put me ahead in the overall valedictorian race. But Mommy Dearest couldn't have that. Mrs. Evans thought she was delivering the final, decisive blow in her son's favor. She was completely unaware that this single, vindictive assignment would be the catalyst for her own undoing and a complete erasure of the very system she was manipulating. With just 3 days left of school, she suddenly assigned a last-minute 2-page paper. It was short and simple. I wrote it, submitted it, and received a 95. Fair enough. Then I found out Mark got a 100. Just enough to push his average past mine in her class, and in the race for the award. I was frustrated, but I was also determined to improve. I asked Mark repeatedly if I could see his paper, to understand what a perfect essay looked like. He refused every time. Then, a memory surfaced. When Mrs. Evans was handing the graded papers back, she never gave one to Mark. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. He hadn't done the paper at all. It was a phantom assignment, created for the sole purpose of putting him ahead. I was furious. I had already gone to the principal several times about Mrs. Evans abusing her position. Mark would even brag to other kids that he could get away with not doing homework because his mom would make sure nothing came of it. But the principal had failed to act every time. He declared that each teacher was sovereign in their classrooms, and as long as it wasn't illegal, he wouldn't intervene. This revealed the principal's greatest fatal flaw, his cowardice disguised as a hands-off policy. By declaring teachers sovereign, he wasn't upholding a principle. He was abdicating his responsibility. And in doing so, he sealed the fate of his school's entire academic record. So, I made a decision. If he wouldn't fix the injustice, I would. I would delete the nepotism. Thanks to a family member who owned a small local ISP, I knew my way around computers and networks far better than most adults, let alone kids my age. I got on a school PC and started digging through the network. Our school had just switched to a paperless grade book system the year before to save money, to make it cost-efficient. The principal hadn't hired a professional technician. Instead, a dad volunteered in exchange for a tuition discount. The system he built was a catastrophe waiting to happen. There was no dedicated server, no password protection, and no administrative restrictions on any files. He had simply created a shared directory on the headmaster's own computer. And in that single, unprotected directory was the entire gradebook for every single class, from kindergarten through 12th grade. It seemed too easy. Surely there had to be a backup somewhere. I found the school's port switcher in an unlocked closet. I looked around for a server rack, a network-attached storage device, anything that would suggest an automatic backup system. There was nothing. Nada. The school, in its infinite wisdom, hadn't purchased a backup system to save a few bucks. My rage turned into cold resolve. I couldn't just change my grades and misses. Evans's class. She watched my average like a hawk. It was time to go nuclear. I sat there in the quiet computer lab, the hum of the old machines filling the silence. I navigated back to that shared directory on the principal's computer. Every grade, every assignment, every record of academic achievement or failure for the entire year, for every student, was right there. I took a deep breath, highlighted every single file in the folder, and my finger hovered over the delete key. I thought of Mrs. Evans's smug expression, Mark's unearned 100, and the principal's spineless inaction. Click. They were gone. All of them. But I wasn't done. The amateur setup meant the headmaster had shared his entire desktop directory. I found the recycling bin icon. With another click, I emptied it. I wiped every trace of the grading data from that computer. No hard copies. No digital copies. No backups. It was as if the school year had never happened. On the very last day of school, we were all called into an assembly. The principal stood at the podium, looking visibly broken and disheveled. He announced that due to a catastrophic data loss, the entire year of grades for the whole school was gone. They couldn't be recovered. All the software could do with no data to input was revert to a default setting for every student's grade. That default was 100%. Every single student, in every single grade, got a perfect 100% average for the year. We were all valedictorians. A few kids who were on the verge of being held back got such a boost from that final year that they got to graduate on time. The next year, we had a new principal. The school suddenly found the budget for security cameras and password-protected logins in the computer lab. I was a person of interest, given my tech background. But they could never prove a thing. The lab PCs didn't even have unique logins, so there was no way to trace the action back to me. In the end, One teacher's attempt to corrupt the system for her son resulted in a perfectly fair outcome for everyone else. My revenge didn't just tear down an enemy. It lifted everyone up. So to the seniors of 2006. I hope you enjoyed that little boost to your transcripts. You're welcome. This whole story shows that when a system is built on weak principles and even weaker security, it's bound to crumble. So I have to ask, when faced with a system that is fundamentally corrupt, is total demolition sometimes the only path to true fairness? What would you have done?